Alrighty, guys, thanks for joining me. This is your host, ID Jester. Welcome back to a Panzer Grenadier by Avalanche Press. Here we are back in Vassal, and we're going to be taking a look at some of the line of sight, spotting range, limiting terrain, and hill elevations changes, and how those rules apply in Panzer Grenadier. So hopefully you've been able to watch some of our previous episodes, but we're just going to talk quickly here about line of sight, which is very important, and obviously spotting range, and some of the differences in how Panzer Grenadier system is a little bit different than some of the other tactical war game systems out there. So I've got some scenarios just set up in here in Vassal, so we can show you some examples. So this is going to be about section 8, 8.1, 8.2, and 8.3 of your rule book. If you don't have the 4th edition rules, you can download those from the Avalanche Press website for free. You can actually download Panzer Grenadier, a trial version of it, where you can print out your own counters. It has all the charts and a couple maps and a couple scenarios for you to try it out. All right, so let's talk about, we already brought this up in a couple videos, but it's important for those people that maybe didn't watch these other videos and they're looking just at this example. Panzer Grenadier has something in their system called limited terrain. So basically, light woods hexes, uh, town hexes and stuff give you limited, um, is what they call limited terrain, which means units that are farther than 3 hexes away cannot see into those hexes to spot enemy units. So, for example, we'll just pull this guy up here to 0808. The German unit here is just out in the open. Normal spotting ranges, again, is in clear hexes is 12 hexes away. So the American in 0808 can spot the German. He's out in the open, so there's nothing there. So he can spot the unit. The German unit, being 123 spots 3 hexes away, can actually see the American unit now because he's in limited terrain and he's within 3 hexes. But we look at the German unit over here in 1207. He's 1, 2, 3, 4 hexes away. This unit cannot spot this unit unless it has a spot marker on it. So if the American shoots, then he'll become spotted and people know that he's there, and there's some rules on that, which we covered in a previous video. But limited terrain. So that's a little bit different than a lot of the other tactical war games out there. Also with Panzer Grenadier, they have something with the light woods and light jungle. So if you take these hexes over here, these are light woods and light jungle. And you can basically spot through 1 hex of light terrain, but you cannot spot through 2 hexes of light terrain. So the American here in 0405, when he's trying to spot this unit over here, if we draw our line of sight thread, you can see it goes through 1 hex, 2 hexes of limited terrain. So these 2 units cannot see one another because it's blocked by the limited terrain. So you can spot through 1 light wood or light jungle hex. You cannot spot through 2. The hex out here in 0206, the German, he can see the American in 0406. They can both see one another. They have line of sight to one another because they only go through 1 hex. It is down the hex spine here, and it should be noted that in Panzer Grenadier, the terrain that's in the hex, any terrain that's in the hex, is assumed to cover the full hex. So if we had something, you're not looking at, does it clip the counter of the trees or does it clip the counter of the buildings? If it is a building hex, then it covers the whole entire building hex, unlike, again, some other tactical games out there. So even though this has only got a couple trees in this hex 0505, this hex is considered to have light woods throughout this whole hex, including the hex sides as well. So, and even if it has just like one or two trees in it, it's still considered to have all of that hex throughout the entire hex. All right, so keep that in mind when you're trying to decide if you have line of sight and if both units can spot one another. So, okay. So a couple more examples. Obviously, we have things that block line of sight. So the unit here in 0508 and the German unit down here in 0610, they cannot see one another because the line of sight is blocked by the blocking terrain, which are going to be the buildings. So they are blocked. Now, if we look at 0808 and 0608, so these two units here, as long as one or the other hex is clear, you can look down the hex side and see the unit. You can choose either one of these hexes to look through. So the Americans in this hex can see the Germans. The Germans can see the Americans. Why can the Germans see the Americans? Because they're within 3 hexes, and even though they are within limited terrain in the town hex. And I should note there is a difference between town hexes and village hexes as well. So there's a difference between light woods and woods, and there's also a difference between town hexes and village hexes. Those terms are not interchangeable, so hopefully I won't say the wrong term for you. So the unit here in 0608 and 0808, they can see one another because this is a clear terrain. They can choose to look through this hex as opposed to this one. Now, if there's a building here and a building here, say for example, if we move these two down like this, the unit in the American in 0809 and 0609, they cannot see one another because both hexes are blocked by blocking terrain. So they can choose to look through this hex, which is blocked, or this hex, which is blocked. Again, doesn't matter if the line of sight touches a building or not. That is immaterial in this game system. Okay? So it doesn't matter if there's a building hex that covers the hex spine. I know there are some tactical war games out there that use, if there is an opening and the buildings do not cross the hex side. In this system, doesn't matter. This hex blocks, and even if there isn't anything on the hex side or a building that covers them, for example, if this unit is here, this hex side goes right through that building. Doesn't matter. It's immaterial as to what that looks like. Let's see if we can find one. Here's a good example like this. So the unit here and the unit down here, again, it goes along this hex side, doesn't touch any building hexes, immaterial, okay? Blocked, both sides are blocked, both hexes are blocked, so you cannot see these guys. So whether there's a building there on the hex side or not doesn't matter at all in Panzer Grenadier. So important to note, because there are some tactical differences between how things, the rules and how things play in Panzer Grenadier, some of the other systems out there. And if you're a tactical guy like myself, you get a little confused when you start playing different tactical systems, what's allowed, what's not allowed, etc., etc. So again, the unit here in 0503, I'm sorry, 0406 and 0206, they can choose to look through this hex side or this hex side. Doesn't matter. Each one of them, they can see one another. Each of the hexes has a complete coverage, including the hex sides, whatever the terrain is, and even if it has just a couple pieces in, this is all light woods. This is all town hex. This is all town hex. This is all woods hex here. Even though the depiction only goes to that little part of it, when you're drawing line of sight, if we look at our thread again, like this, no, that's kind of a bad example. Let's try again. Let's go to there, right? Oh, it doesn't touch the wood hex. Doesn't matter. This whole hex is woods hex. It's just, to keep the, the board looking nice, not over cluttering things. Obviously, it'll look a little weird if just all the hex sides had the woods on it, right? That would be a little weird. It would look a little kind of not realistic. I'd rather have the board and the maps look more realistic than not realistic, and just understand the rules, right? So that's for me a much better thing. Okay, so with all that said, I will go through some more examples here, but I want to talk about yeah, I want to talk about elevation. That's the word I'm looking for. Elevation. All right. So you can see here we have some elevation lines in Panzer Grenadier. It's basically 20 meters. All right. Per elevation change in this map, there is only one. Sometimes you'll have another hill on top of another hill, and they'll have a little 40 on there. But this map just has a hill here and a hill here. Now this is ultra important because Panzer Grenadier does something a lot different than a lot of tactical war games. All right. Number one is just like we talked about with the wood hex and the building hexes. All right. If the line for the elevation terrain is in that hex, then that whole hex is considered to be a sloping hex. All right, so any time the line goes through a hex, this is considered a sloping hex. So it's sloping up to the next elevation, from 0 up to about 20 meters. You're looking at, it going up. It's not starting here and going up. It's the whole hex is slowly but surely making its way up to a higher elevation. Okay, so that's ultra important that you understand that. You will notice all of the slope hexes kind of just go to the middle of the hexes, randomly, a little bit of distortion just so it doesn't look like just a big oval. They got to make it look pretty nicely. But you'll notice most of it is towards the middle of the hexes, okay? Just to keep it, just to let you know. But again, they don't want to just make it one big oval. They want to have a little bit of contour and stuff in it. But again, just like the other terrain hexes, the hex, if it has a line going through it, this whole hex is considered a sloping hex. All right? Ultra important that you know that. Now, again, this is going to be kind of hard to explain, but you should be reading along in your Elevation 8.3 in your 4th edition rule book. Your lightest side is 8.4, and that is going to be ultra important when you talk about, all right, if we talk about, if we bring the rule book over here, 8.41, all right, so there is, line of sight is blocked, all right, if the spotting hex and the target hex are on the same elevation, and then there's some, this is what blocks it. Then there is, line of sight is blocked if the spotting hex and target hex are at different elevations. And here's the rules in that. So make sure you're following along, reading those over, because it's ultra important that you understand this. So we're talking about different hexes, all right? We're talking about different level of hexes. We're talking about this unit here in 0702 and this unit in 1002. So these two are different hexes. This is at level 0, this is at level 20, right? So different level, all right? So what happens in this situation is, all right, line of sight is blocked if the spotting and the target hex are at different levels, and right, and one of 4 things happen. There is a slope hex of higher elevation between these units. So let's say that this is a level 40. We're at a level 20 here, and we're at a level 20. We'll just move this guy here. So this guy's at a level 20 hill, this guy's on a level 20, and this is a level 40 hill instead. All right. So if one or more slope hexes of higher elevation, then the higher unit lies between the 2 hexes. So if he's at 20, This guy is at 40, right? It's kind of a bad example because I don't have a double hill to really talk about, so it's hard for me to show this example. But basically, if you have a higher level elevation, right, in between your um, higher than your higher unit, so you're going to have a high unit and you're going to have a low unit. So just keep that in mind. So the American here is the high unit. This guy's the low unit because he's in a higher level. This guy's in a high hex. This guy's in a low hex. This guy's in a high hex. This guy's in a low hex. So whoever's in the higher hex. So if you have a higher level elevation than the higher unit between those units, then line of sight is blocked. I can't show you that because I don't have a level 2 hex here, or I'm sorry, a level 40 hill on top of level 20, or I'd be able to show you that. But hopefully you understand what I mean. All right. Okay, here we go. Now this is where it gets a little confusing. All right, if one or more slope hexes of the same elevation as the higher unit lies between the two hexes, and the slope hex is closer, not equal distance, to the lower unit, then the higher unit line of sight is blocked. So what did all that mean? All right, so you can see we got a guy here up on the hill. We have guys that are not on the hill. These guys, all these guys are on level 0. We have a couple guys up here on level 20. Is this guy on level 20? Yes. Is he on level 20? Yes. Is this guy on level 20? Yes. He's on level 20 because he's in the slope hex. So he's automatically at level 20. Is this guy on level 20? Yes. Is this guy level 20? Yes. Right? No, no. So that, it doesn't matter if they're on the hex slope, they're at the level 20. You don't have to be on top of the hill to be at level 20. You just have to be at the slope hex. All right. So what does that mean? If one or more slope hexes at the same elevation as the higher unit, so this unit's at level 20. We have a level 20 hex side here, right? And this hex side is closer to the lower unit than the higher unit, not equal distance, then the line of sight is blocked. So what we do is we look at the slope, we look at the unit, and we say, is it closer to the lower unit, in this case the German, or is it closer to the unit up top? If it's equal distance or closer to the unit up top, then you have line of sight. If it's farther away, or if it's closer to the units that's lower, then line of sight is blocked. So, for example, I'll give you a couple good examples here. So, American unit here, and this German unit, we have a slope hex between these two. We find out, is this slope hex, right? We look at our line of sight, and it's this hex right here. Obviously, we all know that. But is this hex equal distance or closer to the higher unit or the lower unit? If it's closer to the lower unit, then there is no line of sight. If it's equal distance or closer to the higher unit, then there is line of sight. These two units can see one another. Same thing with this unit in 0602 and 0402. All right, between them is slope hex. The slope hex is at equal distance or closer to the higher unit or the lower unit. In this case, it's one hex away here, one hex away here, so it's equal distance, so these two units can see one another. Now, let's use our line of sight thread and go between 0703 and 0402. It crosses the slope hex right here, right? 0503, this hex right here. So, is this hex equal distance or closer to the higher unit or the lower unit? Well, let's count them. It's one away from this unit, right? And it's 2 hexes away from this unit. So this unit the heavy machine gun and this unit in 0703 cannot see one another because the snowpex is closer to the lower unit. If we look at this one right here, 0704, this American unit and the heavy machine gun, right? So we look and lose our line of sight thread, and there we go. So it goes through this slope hex right here. This is a slope hex, right? So is this hex closer to the lower unit or equal distance or closer to the higher unit? In this case, it's 1 away from the heavy machine gun, but 2 away from the American unit. These two units cannot see one another. Let's use this unit in 0703, right? 0703, and let's look and see if these two units have line of sight together, right? I won't say out loud. You just think about it for a second. All the rules we've talked about, right? So it goes through this hex. This is a slope hex. So this is the slope hex. So is it closer to the lower unit or higher unit? It's only 2 away from the German unit. It is 1, 2, 3 away from the American unit. So these two units do not have line of sight together. What about, let's look at these two hexes. Oh, why the line of sight thread went away. There we go. So what do you think? Line of sight, yes or no? I'll give you just a second to think about it. Obviously, it's yes. It crosses the slope here. 1, 2 to the German, 1, 2 to the American. So equal distance or closer to the higher unit. So that would be good. And there is a line of sight. All right. Let's let's look at an example between these two units. American unit here, German unit here. Do those two units have line of sight? I'll give you a couple seconds to think about it, but no, they do not. This hill hex crosses. It is higher than both the units, so that no line of sight. This is at level 0, this is at level 0, this is at level 20. So you got a big hill between these two guys, so they can't see one another. Pretty easy stuff there. All right, let's see if I can give you a couple more examples here. All right, so let's look at this. So this one's a strange one. So you can see it goes through this hex, it goes through this hex, and it goes through this hex, just barely in the corner, right? Now, because this guy is up at a level 2, right? These are all at level 0. We're looking over these, right? Trying to look over these hexes. So we have to see, is this hex right here, is it closer or equal distance to the higher unit or the lower unit? In this case, 0603 is the last hex that's going to be blocked. Again, even though this only has a couple trees, the whole hex is considered to have light woods in it, right? It crosses over that corner. So 1, 2, back to the American unit, 1, 2 to the German, so equal distance or close to the higher unit. And sure enough, those two units can see one another. What about this hex and this hex? All right, so that should be pretty easy, right? 0414, right, is what we're crossing over here. And we have the unit in 0314. It's only 1 hex away. It's 3 hexes away, the American unit, so they can't see one another. Line of sight is blocked. All right. What about this unit and this unit right there? What do you think of that? Can they see one another? Can they shoot at one another? Right? So they do have line of sight. Obviously, nothing in between them blocks them. But remember, this American unit's in limited terrain, so the German unit cannot spot him because he's not within 3 hexes. 1, 2, 3. He's 4 hexes away. So the American can see the German. The German cannot see the American unit. There is line of sight, clear line of sight back and forth between these two units. All right, so here is another question for you. What about these two units? Can they see one another? Right? What do you think? What do you think? Boom, 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 boom. So this is Rule 8.34, which is what I want you to know is in the 4th edition rulebook. So normally leaders and units spot from the ground level. However, when spotting from a town hex, not a village hex, but a town hex, you get to spot from the 20-meter above what level you're at, because you're basically, it's assumed your guys are up in the top of the buildings. You got your spotters with the binoculars up in the bell towers and the church towers, and you're scouting around, right? So you get an extra 6 spot range for your distance where you can spot units. So normal 12, right? 1, 2, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So what we'll do is we'll remove this guy. Let's see here. Let's see if we can get a better example here, right? So the American unit, right? So American unit, or I'm sorry, the American unit, the German unit up here on the hill, right? When he's spotting, normal 12 hexes, right? If the German unit here, the American unit are here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We're going to have to do it a little more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I can't even get it. 1, 2, no, because the hill will block it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yep, no. Can't show you unless we have multiple maps, unless we go up or down. I guess we go up or down. Let's do up or down. That's fine. All right, so we got this unit down here. So we got this German unit right up here. 0202. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. What? I'll put them at 01, so that way it'll be easy. So from 01 to 11 is 10 hexes. 11 hexes, 12 hexes. So this unit right here, 0213, and this unit is 0201. They can spot one another because they're both in clear terrain. Nothing special about their terrain, right? Just clear terrain. You can spot 12 hexes apart in clear terrain. And nothing between them blocking or limiting sight or anything like that, okay? But this unit in 0214 is 13 hexes away, so he can't spot them. Can't spot them out of range. But the advantage of being up on a hill is you can spot 6 hexes farther. So if I had multiple map boards out here, this unit can spot 6 extra hexes because he's up on a level 20 hill. And then special rule 8.34, the town hexes. If he's in a town hex, he automatically gets it to be 20 meters higher. Again, the reason you're up in the church towers, you're up in the top of the buildings, you got your guys, your spotters up, way up, in the top of the buildings, and you're scouting around. So you get to be at one level higher than you're currently at. So if this guy was spotting, he'd get 6 extra to his spotting range. Not that he would be able to attack that far, but he'd be able to spot units that far away, right? He only got a range of 3, but he could spot units 18 hexes away, which, might come into play if you got mortar units or something like that. You could spot for your mortar units and say, there's guys way over there, and he's 18 hexes away. This German unit can spot 24 hexes away. Again, he gets 6 hexes for being a level higher, and 6 hexes because of the bonus for the town. So 6 and 6 is 12, plus the normal 12 is 24 hexes away. So this guy can spot a long way away, right? This American unit, though, he can only spot 6 extra because he's on a hill. So you get the bonus based upon if you're at a higher elevation than the enemy unit. 6 extra spaces. But that is just for, that isn't for spotting into limited terrain. That's just for your spotting distance. So this unit here, the original question was, can this guy, the German unit, can he spot this American unit? No, because he's in limited terrain. There is line of sight between them, right? But he can't shoot at one another because neither one's been spotted. They're both in limited terrain, and they're both outside of the 3 distance marker. Let's see what else we can show you here. So let's see, this unit in 0, let's get our line of sight thread, makes it a little easier. Those two have line of sight between one another. They do not, because again, the building hex blocks a line of sight. So the important thing is for you to learn, or not learn, but study or kind of look at, is your terrain sheet from 4th edition. It's got some exceptions again. Light woods and jungle hexes can trace line of sight through 1. Light woods or light jungle hex cannot trace line of sight through 2 or more. The rivers, mangroves, some other important information. And then, of course, here is your terrain chart, which is really not that helpful, to be honest, because most of them say C note, C note, C note, no effects, C note, C note, C note. But it goes into a little bit more detail down here at the bottom, right, on how limited terrain, and especially the main thing is how Panzer Grenadier handles elevation changes. So, for example, in a normal tactical war game, if you have a unit, all right, at the, come on, get rid of my thread. I don't need you anymore. Thank you. All right, so let's see. If this guy was on the hill, right, and these two can see one another, but this guy here and this guy here could not see one another because the hill hex side is there. So basically, it's the rule of the Grand Canyon, So unless you're at the edge of the hill, no one can see you. It's like looking down the Grand Canyon. If you're standing right here, you can't see the edge of the Grand Canyon. You can't see down, and people can't see up. That's kind of the normal standard rule. But in Panzer Grenadier, it's a little bit different in that there's, it's kind of more realistic in that it slopes up, right? So from 06 to 03 to 07 to 03, and from 07 to 03 to 05, 02. It's not like this hex. I mean, realistically, this hex doesn't go up 20 meters and then flatten out like a plateau. This isn't like a plateau. That's the way normal war games think of hill hexes is this is the hex, this is the side of the hill, and then everything on top of the hill is like on a plateau. That's not realistic, all right, when you think about it. What's happening here in 0502 is it's slowly, steeply, it's going up from 1 meter to 2 meters, 3 meters, 4 meters, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, right? So it's a slope that goes up. It's not just from this spot to this spot is 20 meters higher, and then from this spot to this spot stays 20 meters, stay 20, stay 20, stay 20, stay 20. No, it's a, it's a hill. It's a slope as it slopes up, right? So 1 meter, 2 meter, 3 meter, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, blah, blah. So you got an angle, right, going there. So the Panzer Grenadier is, okay, can the angle of the slope, can the guys see one another? And you look at where the angle is, how far back you are on the angle, and where the enemy is. And that'll determine whether or not you can actually see one another. Again, this here, this unit here, this is sloping hex down, right? And then this is flat. So does the slope down enough, right, that this guy can see over the slope onto this guy that's out in the open. In this case, he can, because it's equal distance to both units, and if it's equal distance or closer to the higher unit, then yes, they can see one another. But in this case, 0703 to 0201, right, the slope is too steep as it slopes back for them to see this guy out here, because this is 1, 2, 3 hexes away. This is only 2 hexes away. I'm sorry, no, that's not true. It's closer to this guy. This guy here, the heavy machine gun, right? So he's trying to look down the slope, but then this guy right here at the bottom of the slope, he can't see this guy because the slope is too closer to the lower unit. So it's, if you're looking, let's see, let's bring up Word here. Let's see if we can draw something kind of haphazard, right? You know what? Let's bring up Paint, might even be better, right? All right, so let's bring up a black. Let's just do something like this, right? So you got your flank terrain, and then you kind of have this little hill going up and like this, right? And then you, right? And you have your little dudes, right? Here's our dudes, right? And they're trying to spot out here, right? So the farther a unit is back away from the edge of the slope, right? So here's your slope, right here. So the farther the unit is back away here, most war games, right? What they want you to do is here, and then it's up like that, and then it flattens off again. So unless your unit's standing right at the edge, right? Here's your guy at the edge, and then we can see down, you can see up, right? But a unit back here, and yes, I'm a wonderful drawer, what can I say? When he tries to spot, he can't because it's blocked by the terrain there. Right, so let's go File, New. So in Panzer Grenadier, it's actually more realistic in that you got like a flattish straight, and then you got a sloping thing that kind of goes up like that, and then back over, right? And the farther your guy is back away from the edge of the slope, right, the harder it is going to be for him to see guys that are right at the base. If we go back to our example here, this guy's kind of back away from, as the slope comes up, he's kind of farther back. This guy is right here at the base of it, right? And we go back to our example. Where is it? Where is our paint? Hello, paint. There we are. All right. So as he's trying to look down, he's going to get blocked, right? If he was up here, closer to the edge, he could spot the guy, right? So if we go back to our example here, right? Because he's back farther, he's going to be stupid. There you go. Because this guy's farther back, he's going to be blocked by the slope. But if he moves up, then all of a sudden he can see him, right? Makes sense. Makes perfect sense. These guys here, let's look at this example, 0703 to 0301. If we go draw that example, right? So, new. And don't save, I don't need that. So we have our flat terrain, pretty long flat terrain, and then this starts to come up, right? And like that, which is more realistic than normal wargaming. So this guy's back quite a bit, right? And then, again, if we had guys that are like down here at the base of it, he wouldn't be able to see because it would be blocked by the terrain. But you got guys way out here. Hey, here we are. We're carrying our little German flag, or the American flag, or whatever, right? Farther back they are, easier they are for me to be able to spot them, right? If we go back to our example. Right, so farther back, I can see them, I can see them, I can see them because they're farther back. They get closer to the edge of the hill, right? The closer they get to the edge of the hill, right, the harder it's going to be for us to spot them. So we can spot them if they're one hex, but they move up another hex, right? Just think of each one of these as like a hex, right? And then you have your hex here, your hex here, your hex here, right? Those are, representations on a map board. Hex, 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 hex. So let's see. So that's kind of a side view, and like I said, in most war gamers, they want you to, or most tactical war games, it's like flat terrain, then you have your hill, and then it flattens out again. which is, and then you say, okay, guys at the edge of the hill can see down. If you're back, right, you can't see down because it'll bounce off the terrain here, right? It'll bounce off the terrain. So the only thing they can spot is guys at, if we're 20 meters up, they can only see guys that are 20 meters up. Okay? So if you think about it realistically, Panzer Grenadier gets it more right. It is a little more confusing, right? And it takes a little bit longer to get used to it because it's a little bit different. But to be honest, it's more correct in the way real life is, right? We have a real life, we have a little hill, and it kind of goes up and down, or like stuff like that. That's our hill. It's not boop 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 like that. And then you got your guy that's standing on the hill, right? And we have another guy standing on the hill, and this guy might be a little bit farther back. It's good, and in Panzer Grenadier, they don't call it a hill, right? You'll never see the term hill. It is a slope hex, right? So you have a slope that goes up a distance of, in this game, it's 20 meters, right? 20 meters. But it's as it slopes up. And then it's a matter of, okay, does our guy here, does he see the units out here? The guy that's here, does he see the units, right? Or this guy, does he see the units? Oops, draw like this, right? Just do these guys see the units, right? And they're carrying their little gun. This guy's carrying his little gun here. This guy's got a bazooka. Right? There's his bazooka. Right? Doesn't matter. Right? It's not like goes out and then up and then straight out again. Right? So if I'm up here, I'm like, oh, you can't see me because here's the hex at the edge, and there's the hex. Oh, I'm one hex back. I'm one hex back. One hex back. And yes, if you want to screenshot this and be sure to copy and make a poster out of it, that's fine. So I'm one hex back. Oh, I can't see down anymore. I can only see out. I can only see out, which in tactical wargaming is a little bit different than normal. So that's when you see it sideways, it makes a little more sense. And like I said, in normal wargaming, it's what I call the Grand Canyon effect, right? Is you come up, right? And then if you're not at the edge, it's like when you go to the Grand Canyon, you literally see nothing, right? I see nothing until I get to the edge. And all of a sudden, when I make it to the edge, I can now see down into the Grand Canyon. So that's what normal wargaming does. So, it's a big difference. Panzer Grenadier kind of has sloping slopes like that. So just keep that in mind. It's ultra important to understand that concept because you're going to be looking at the edge of the slopes. You're going to be looking at we don't in this case have any buildings like but terrain that's lower hexes, whether or not that blocks line of sight, right? So if we had an example of this and this, right? German unit trying to spot the American unit. We look at our line of sight thread. And there we go. So this building hex is 1, 2, 3, 4 away from the higher unit. 1, 2, 3 from the closer units to this. Basically, think of this situation. All right, we're going to show you this situation. We're going to draw this situation out for you guys. So it makes a little bit more sense. All right, so we have flat terrain, quite a bit, and then we have our slope, right, like that. Then we have our little buildings. Right, and then we have our dude. And we have our other dude. He's up here on the hill, right? And the question is, can this guy, right, So you're going to be able to see over the buildings and see that guy. And in this case, oops, I got the edge of my mouse and it messed up. He can't, right? Because if he wants to see those units, he's going to have to go down and he's going to hit into the building hexes right there to see this guy, right? So this guy was back just a little bit more, right here, back here. He would be able to see him, and that is represented in Panzer Grenadier perfectly by, if this unit was back one more hex, now all of a sudden, if we look at our line of sight thread and we compare it, it is 1, 2, 3, 4 hexes away from this guy, 1, 2, 3, 4 hexes away from this guy. So it's equal distance or closer to the higher unit. So now these two units have line of sight to one another. And it makes, hopefully, perfect sense that if the blocked, but if he's back just a little bit farther, you get that other angle. Remember I was talking about the angles earlier, right? So you got the angle, right? So you got that angle that just goes over the buildings, and now all of a sudden you can see the guy in the hex that's, you know, if he's, let's see, in this example, he was 1, 2, 3, 4 hexes, right? 1, 2, 3 hexes is not good, but 4 hexes away is good. And it's not drawn to scale, obviously, so don't get all bent out of shape about that. But that's kind of the representation of what's going on. So if this guy was closer to the edge, right? If he's closer to the edge, right, he's going to have more chance of looking at the building. So guys have to be closer, right, to him to be able to see. If this guy was back farther, right, it makes sense that because it's a slope going up, he's going to be a little bit higher. And if he's a little bit higher, then all of a sudden we got that angle that comes down. And this guy can see one another. Look at that. Way! And that's a lot of super cool drawings. But that is how it is done in Panzer Grenadier. And hopefully it makes a little bit of sense for you guys. Line of sight, spotting, blocking, limited terrain. Really check those rules out in the rule book. Read them over. There is a great diagram. There's a great diagram in the actual Panzer Grenadier book. And it gives you different positions, right? And it says Unit A and Unit J. Can they see one another? Yes or no? Is there line of sight? And is it? Can they? Can they see one another? Can they shoot at one another? And they give you detailed explanations. Well, not detailed, but they give you an explanation. A and B. Can they see one another? Yes. Can they shoot at one another? Yes. They're both in limited terrain, but they're both within 3 hexes, so they can see one another. A and D. Can they see one another? Yes, they can see one another, but they cannot shoot at one another. They can see one another because they have line of sight. There's nothing blocking them. They're on the same terrain, but they're both in limited terrain, and they are 4 hexes away from one another, so they cannot. So go through the rule book, check out the different examples. This is a hill hex. These dotted lines here represent the hill hex. And I'll give you some good examples of how buildings and different tree lines, trees, how they affect units that are standing behind them in your example. So, do we have any good? See if I can come up with a good example. Yeah, well, okay, I don't need you anymore, thanks. All right, so this guy was here, right? This guy was here. We're going to look through the slope hex, right? The slope hex. These two can see one another because it's equal distance. They cannot see one another because the sloping hex. I'm sorry, they can see one another because the sloping hex is closer to the higher unit, because this guy is moved back to make it a little bit more available to him now. So anyways, hopefully, I know it took me actually, and I am a tactical wargamer, and I played just about every tactical war game out there. I enjoy all the different tactical war games out there. And it took me a little while to wrap my head around this. And basically, I took my test, right? I called it my test, right? I call it my test. But if you go through in the rule book, as I said, and you go through, can the viewers spot one another? Is there a line of sight, and are they spotted, right? Take this test. Go, just look at A and B. Look at A and B, and then just determine for yourself, do they have line of sight? And can A spot B? And then you decide, yes, there is line of sight, and yes, they're spotted, and then look at the answer. In this case, oops, yes, yes, and the reason is within 3 hex of limited terrain. Now, next one is, I'm going to slide it over here so you guys can't cheat. A and C. Do they have line of sight, and can they spot one another? Give you a second to think about it. And the answer is, in this case, these are wood hexes. This is the way they used to do wood hexes in the old days, I believe. Not light woods. These are regular woods. So because there's wood between these two, you do not have line of sight between one another. It's blocked by the woods. What about A and D? So A is here, D is here. Do they have line of sight, and can they spot one another? Yes, they do have line of sight. A has line of sight to D, right? That was the question. Can they be spotted? No, because he is 1, 2, 3, 4 hexes away. He's in limited terrain. So go through, take your test after you watch my video. Read the couple of the rules. Like I said, 8, 8.1, 8.2, 8.3, and 8.4. Ultra important you wrap your head around this because, like I said, in normal wargaming, right, is a little bit different than in, not that it's normal wargaming, other wargaming, I guess to say, is a little bit different in how they handle sloping hills. This is much more realistic in the way it should be done. It does add some complexity to the game and trying to figure out, can this unit, if I move this guy up here, all of a sudden these two can't see one another, and now I can move them right up, right, without this guy being able to shoot me. So, it adds some more tactical strategy into that, as opposed to I'm either on the edge of the hill and I can see you, or I'm not at the edge of the hill and I can't see anyone, right? So that's the breakdown of everything that we just talked about in 5 seconds. In this game, it's when you look at the edge, is it equal distance or closer to the higher unit or the lower unit? And that'll determine whether or not they have line of sight. And that's a breakdown of it. Hopefully this helps. If it does, let me know in the comments section. I'm sorry it rambled on for quite a bit, but again, this is all the line of sight spotting is different. Limited terrain is different, right? Anybody in limited terrain can't be spotted outside of 3 hexes unless they have a spotted marker on them. A little bit different than a lot of other war games out there. Not that it's bad. I actually like some of the rules in there. I actually like this sloping rule a lot. It just takes a little while because other tactical systems don't use that, so it takes you a little while to wrap your head around what exactly it's talking about. And hopefully this video helped you guys learn it a little bit better. Panzer Grenadier, Avalanche Press, check it out. We'll see you all next time. Thanks so much for watching.